Okay, I want to call the Hopkinton Town Council special meeting, remote meeting of June 11th, 2020 to order with a moment of silent meditation and salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Liberty and justice.
Okay. All right, thanks everybody for getting together on such short notice. The reason I called the meeting tonight was because I was going back and forth with the chairperson of the school committee in Charahoe. And, you know, every time a letter came back or went, I would get increasingly frustrated. So I wanted the whole council to kind of weigh in on this and kind of help share the burden of this scenario, so to speak. So as I've been working 7 days a week and it's been a little bit crazy. So so I appreciate everyone listening in and chatting about this particular topic. But, you know, the main focus tonight was I wanted for us to get together and prepare some kind of response to the recent activities that have happened relative to the referendums. You know, on June 3rd, Chairperson Callahan had sent me a letter about the referendum for Charahoe, wanting to have it on the 30th, which is the last day of the fiscal year. It's just absolutely not it's not acceptable to us because we don't have enough time to prepare for our own tax levy and our own budgetary issues once the votes finally get certified. So, you know, there's been a lot that has gone on and I've been privy to a lot of it. And so, you know, the main, well, I guess what I want to have accomplished tonight is for us to formulate a response, whether it's me, Kevin, and Bill together with the council's blessing, with the balance of the council's blessing, just to formulate a response, because I know what the truth is in terms of what had happened as far as the timeline. And I know that we as a council in the town did what we thought was in the best interest of the town so we can get our financial affairs in order, set a tax levy and actually vote on our municipal side of the budget. So so I'm absolutely confident that we did the right thing. We can chat tonight too, which I think Chairperson Callahan made reference to, you know, the Charahoe Act and having a vote on the school budget on the same day. Well, the Charahoe Act has been violated, for lack of a better word, on numerous occasions due to COVID-19. So we did what we had to do, and I still feel very strongly about that, and hopefully the rest of the council does. So, so that, you know, again, really just to recap, I want to formulate a response, a written response to the school committee, our representatives on the school committee, any other elected officials, and the school administration, the other two towns, and let them know, you know, why we did what we did, and really spell out a lot of the facts, I think, that were not present in some of these letters. And they'll all be facts. So. So anyway, so that's kind of just to frame it up. I wanted to kind of just lay that out there. That's hopefully my objective in tonight's meeting, to get that, the blessing of the council to send a response. And we'll share that once we draft. But yeah, hold on one second. Yeah. So anyway, so, you know, I kind of jumped ahead. Let me just rephrase, I guess, or recap what the agenda item is. Discuss and consider implications and possible consequences for the results and outcome of the June 9th, 2020 Charahoe budget referendum for Hopkinton voters. Discuss June 8th, 2020 correspondence from the Charahoe School Committee Chair. Consider potential modifications and/or confirmation of plans for the Hopkinton budget referendum scheduled for June 23rd, 2020. And consider and possibly vote on any motions made and seconded to modify, change, cancel, or confirm plans for the June 23rd, 2020 referendum. and/or the special town council meeting scheduled for June 25th, 2020, announced at the June 11th, 2020 town council meeting to adopt routine financial resolutions for setting the tax levy for fiscal year 2021 town budget. So I put the cart before the horse on that, I guess, but anyway, that's essentially what the agenda is, and I share what my objectives were tonight for us as a council, and I just want to put through a fact-based response to all involved as to, for all these referendums that have gone by and will go by relative to the school committee budget. As everyone knows, the school committee budget was passed in our town. It was, I think, 201 approved, 177 disapproved. So it did pass by 24 votes. So anyway, that's that. I guess whoever wants to start, Scott's waving to me, so I'm gonna hand over the microphone to Scott Bill Hurst, Vice President. Scott.
Scott Bill Hurst, Vice President of the Town Council. I think it's very important to realize, and I do support the I think what's missed in all is the fact that in early April, it was decided or thereabouts not to have the Charahoe referendum. And at that time, the chairman of the school committee and the school committee should have stayed on top of it. And then we get a letter in June, which is almost 2 months later. Towns have to not only know those things, but this Charahoe School Committee leads off on their referendum. And even though it had to be changed because of the COVID-19, they dragged their feet. So the town council, at least of Richmond and Hopkinton, have to step into the void created by the lack of leadership of the Charahoe School Committee. That's a fact. That's not an opinion. And the thing that disappoints me is that we have a school committee of 12 people, and they should have been pushing to have at least a date or approximate date for a vote. You don't wait to June, almost 2 months later, to do that. I was just in a primary on June 2nd, and that original primary was April 28th, and they conducted a statewide primary. It would seem to me that a 3-town school district could have arranged a vote before that, keeping in contact with the Secretary of State, the Board of Elections, as well as the town. I'm a little dismayed that the chairman of the school committee and the school Charahoe establishment dilly-dallied for a couple of months before we get this notice, and the town had to move. And I'm a little disappointed in the town of Charlestown for not even setting up a vote on the Charahoe thing. And I mean, the incredulous statement made by, I believe it was the council president in Charleston, who said they're waiting for direction from the school committee. Well, you can't wait for the school committee when it takes literally months for them to decide what they're going to do. They can certainly talk to the Secretary of State or the Board of Elections like anybody else can. So I support the town of Hopkinton. We made a good faith effort to get the job done when the school committee failed to do its job. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Barbara?
Barbara, go ahead. You got the floor.
Yes, thank you. I would just like to say that I think this council decided clearly, concisely, and well, without acrimony, and with the best interests of our citizens in mind. We have kept the letter and spirit of our town charter and the Charahoe Act during this, very unusual time for all 3 towns and for the school department. I think we should stay with exactly what we have determined. I think it is legal. I think it's correct. And I think it's something that is efficient for the use of our citizens and of our charter. I don't see any reason to change that. If you need to send a letter to legally explain our point of view, that is fine. I think what we've done is as correct and legal as we could possibly have done it. And I am not holding the school committee as much against this process as Scott may be. I think that everyone was extraordinarily busy trying to manipulate their needs with COVID-19. Everyone put something that was not first on their burner way to the back. And I am sure that the last thing the school was thinking about was the vote, since they had to decide how they were going to teach children. Does it work? How are the parents? Can they get food out? They had a great deal more to worry about than the vote. I am sorry it went this long. I think it is unfortunate, but I think we have made a very fine decision, and I'd like to stay with it. Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara. Sharon, you want to weigh in on this?
Okay. I think we waited as long as we could for the Charahoe School Committee to schedule a budget referendum. And we also owed it to our town to schedule a town budget referendum according to our town charter before July 1. The bottom line is that the June 9th Charahoe budget referendum in Hopkinton passed, and we still intend to vote on the town budget on the 23rd and have the special meeting on the 25th to do the other part of our business to be ready for July 1. And I think, like Barbara and Scott said, I think we've done the best that we could under the circumstances. I have no regrets, and I think we should continue on our plan.
Thank you, Sharon. Next up, Silvia Thompson.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with anything anybody said. We had our vote. The voters decided the Charahoe budget is approved as submitted by and approved by the Charahoe School Committee. I would like to state that the budget, our children, our school, our teachers, that's, if you ask anybody, they would say that's the most important thing, having a good education for the kids. But before they can even get a good education and have teachers and lunches during this virus, and being at home, schooling by video, and the graduation, all of that got done. But the most crucial part that allows all of that to happen is the adoption of their budget. We could say it's a lack of leadership. They sat on their hands. But the truth of the matter is that the attorney for the Charahoe School Committee went through the back door and tried to get the governor by executive order to allow the school committee to just adopt its budget without a vote. The towns were not included in that effort. Any town that I know of, we certainly weren't. And then when that didn't work, they had he submitted draft legislation that would allow regional school district to do the same, just allow the school committee to adopt a budget. Again, we weren't part of that discussion. When we heard about that, we talked about it at a May meeting, and on May 28th, we responded to Charahoe. And I urge anyone who wants to read that to get a copy. Maybe that May 28th letter can go online. I don't know. It's just a thought. I'd like people to know that on May 28th, we told them what Richmond was doing, what Charlestown was doing, and what Hopkinton was doing on different days to try to get the school budget passed. And it wasn't until after that letter that they reacted. And of course, they reacted after all the other backdoor efforts didn't work. It should be a collaborative effort of the three towns and the school committee. And the school committee, according to the Charahoe Act, they just tell us a date. It's up to the towns to figure out how to have their elections. Charlestown did it via the internet. Richmond did it at their town financial meeting, and we had a vote. And we didn't decide on May 28th to do the vote. You can't do it at the last minute. It had to be arranged ahead of time because, and by the way, Charlestown, who was waiting for Charahoe, they were waiting just like we were waiting. So they didn't do anything wrong other than expect to hear from Charahoe. When all of this started to happen, we had to react. Our voters were very upset that they wouldn't get a chance to vote on the school budget, so we gave them that chance. the budget passed. That's the number we're putting in our budget. As far as a letter is concerned that goes out to try to explain this, and when they respond back, I don't get it, I don't understand, all we can do is give them the facts. And I would encourage this letter that goes out to note what happened in the 1990s, very, very similar issue. There was no tax rate, the tax levy, and all of the things that need to be done before July 1 were unable to be done. So if you have a vote on June 30th, all of those things, and those things, I think we go to the assessor or whoever to make sure that we detail exactly what it means on July 1 if we had a vote on June 30th, why our town would shut down, what are the things, and if another town like Coventry is doing it, everybody has a different charter, everybody has different rules, and we're doing the best we can. We had a vote. People made a decision, and I think that prior to all of this, I was very proud, quite frankly, of the school administration, and that this, in the end, the school committee supported their decrease of the budget, the expense size side of the budget in the school budget. And they cut around $800,000 to get us from 7% back to the 4%, so we don't violate the you can't increase beyond 4% law. So I think those things need to go into a letter to them. I think they need to know that we can't have it on the 30th. And that's our position, because we're not going to turn our town upside down for mistakes and a lack of leadership that the Charahoe School Board showed. They should have had an emergency meeting. They shouldn't wait to the 16th, and it's too late. And that's that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. Very well said. Yeah, I'll say a couple other things, but Scott's waving at me. Scott, go ahead.
I'm just going to say, I don't know if Cynthia Drum is listening or anything else, but the first year I was elected to the council, which was 1996, I believe that was the year of the shutdown. If you want to do some historical.
Oh, Scott, I forgot to mention it was Robert Corrigan Jr. that was the council president. So it would have been like 93 or 92. It was early.
Okay, I will stand corrected. I thought it was 96, but could have been 92. But anyways, I just hope, because some of the women a couple of women had emailed the council or individually. Sometimes it's tough to remember if it's the whole council or just you that gets it. Talking about to have a vote. It's really not the councils so much as it's the school committee, and the school committee. It's one thing to be guilty and be accused of something, but it's another thing when somebody else fails to do something and you have to respond, which is the case here. And I'd like to thank Councilor Thompson for mentioning all these letters and how the Charahoe School Committee is going to be unscathed for all their inattention to this matter.
Thanks, Scott. You know, as Sylvia said a lot of what I would have said, and I'm hoping that gets in the letter to the school committee, because, you know, there were often times that, you know, I was nervous about whether we could plan our own referendum on our own municipal budget, not hearing from Charahoe. I've reached out to Chairman Callahan on a couple occasions, had no information prior to some of the letters coming out about having a referendum vote on the 30th of June. I called Assistant Superintendent Jane Daly, the same thing. You know, and I guess the thing I want to just mention is, you know, the whole budgetary process, it started out rough, but then it came around and everything worked out great. But I have to tell you, and I'm really thankful, as Sylvia had mentioned, that they really did reduce a lot of the expenses, about $864,000, which is great. It got us under the cap, but I have to admit, you know, this referendum for Charahoe, in the couple months that they postponed their referendum to when they announced a new date, it's kind of overshadowed a lot of the good that's happened during that budgetary process for me. You know, when I see emails about, you know, legislation trying to, you know, drafted and crafted to have them vote on their own budget when we didn't know anything about that, it's just very disheartening. You know, just, if that's your route you want to go, and because of COVID, we'll just let it all out and say, hey, this is what we want to do. What are your thoughts? Never got any calls. Our town never got any correspondence regarding that. So that's the part that really bothers me. And I'm going to make sure that that's in the letter that we send out to everyone. So, but thanks, Sylvia, for really capturing all those facts. So, all right, Kevin, I guess, so the bottom line is, from what I gather from the council, we're good with keeping the town budget referendum on 6/23 and setting the tax levy on 6/25. And we're not going to have another vote for Charahoe on June 30th, as Chairman Ryan Callahan wanted. They'll just have to deal with the yeses and the nos that we had from our June 9th referendum. Kevin, any legal issues do you think we need to weigh in on, I guess, based on the agenda?
Well, generally speaking, I just want to add that, as Councilwoman Thompson said, the council got very concerned back in May about the possibility of Hopkinton's voters getting disenfranchised in terms of their right to vote on the Charahoe budget, which is a requirement, as everybody agrees, in the Charahoe Act, because time was, marching on, and as she said, elections take some time to arrange, and it has to be coordinated with the Board of Elections, and there's a lot to it. And by the time we had the May 18th meeting, this was getting a lot of attention and concern in town. So that resulted in the letter of May 28th that Councilwoman Thompson mentioned, where the town notified its partners in the Charahoe School District and Charahoe, as well as other elected officials and state officials, what the plan was to make sure that Hopkinton's voters didn't get disenfranchised in this budgetary process. So we told them in the letter that there would be the Charahoe referendum in Hopkinton on June 9th. That happened. The voters of Hopkinton, with the support of the town council, who had mentioned at earlier meetings how pleased they were with the Charahoe budget as recommended. The voters passed it in Hopkinton. We said in our letter of May 28th that if the Charahoe referendum budget was approved in the June 9th referendum, that would be part of the town budget to be voted on June 23rd. So that was the plan. I don't see a reason for us to depart from the plan because as most of the council members, I think all of them tonight have mentioned, the budget has to be in place before June 30th, ready to go, so that the town can continue without a pause when the calendar turns from June 30th to July 1st. And as was also mentioned, Hopkinton has experienced what happens when the budget is not in place by the end of the fiscal year, and that resulted in a shutdown. So, the COVID-19 situation required some creativity and planning on the fly on the part of everyone. I think everyone's done the best they can, both within Hopkinton and outside Hopkinton, to deal with that, and that's what Hopkinton did. And I think we're good to go with the plan as has been suggested by everyone tonight.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Yeah, Sylvia wants to weigh in.
One last comment. I just remembered that in one of the correspondence back from, I think it was the most recent one, when the chairman expressed that he didn't understand what our issue was, and he noted that we should be okay because we had $5 million in the bank or set aside or something, but the money that is set aside, referred to as the fund balance, that allows, because we don't have, our bills come in starting in July. We get a bill from Charahoe, we owe them millions of dollars. When that happens, we go to our bank account and in our checkbook, And that's where that money, the money that's in there right now covers us until the tax money comes in. It works for a few months until in September, tax money starts rolling in. So that's why there's always a little bit of money for starting on July and June and August, July and August, because the bills come in and we don't have our tax money. And that's another thing. Back in the 90s when the town shut down, and things were slower and we didn't have the software and the abilities we have today. But back then we had to do a supplemental tax. A supplemental bill had to go out because if you think of, well, I won't get into, I guess I shouldn't get into the weeds of everything. It's more complicated than just setting a tax rate and having a budget. It's more complicated because when the tax bills go out, they have to be the correct number. And if they go out and the budget changes, then you got to send out a supplemental. And let me tell you, that went over real well that year. Thank you.
Well, the other thing to remember is that if we have 5 million each month at July 1st, August 1st, September 1st, we owe the school department over $1 million that day. So of that 5 million, 3 million goes to the school. That only allows us 2 million to run the town, all of our contractual obligations. So that was really not wise for them to mention that in the letter. Most of that money actually goes to Charahoe. Also frustrating. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Barbara and Sylvia. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I actually forgot about that part of the letter that Callahan sent us, and you know, it was in bad taste to mention that regarding our fund balance. You know, when in actuality they sat on their hands for
It's theirs.
For 2 months.
Well, it's also their money
Yeah, so you know.
on top of everything else.
Yeah, no, it's all these comments are great, and I appreciate everyone's time and unanimous support on the agenda tonight and
We need
formulating.
a motion for you to send the letter.
If you want to make a motion, sure.
I'll make a motion that the council president be empowered to send a letter to the chairman of the school committee and all those people he deems necessary about the sentiment of the town council in regard to recent events dealing with the Charahoe school budget.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on this?
Yes.
And of
Okay.
course, multiples would weigh in on that letter like you did before.
Oh, yeah.
And on Kevin's part, to make sure that, I don't know what suits are going to fly back and forth or if there are going to be any, but just make sure that legal,
Let's hope
that we
not.
put in to bolster our case, the facts, make sure all the facts are in there. That's all. Thank you.
I just want to say one thing, and I know people are listening.
Short. We have to be out of here by
We gotta be
7
out by
o'clock.
7. I just want to say that we have a school committee of 12 people, and it's sad that when you have a dozen people, that more people get put for answers on the school committee. Thank you. 4 from each town. Thank you.
Okay, any further council comment?
I move we adjourn.
We have a motion made and
You
seconded.
did not
Vote
vote.
first.
No,
Yeah.
hold on,
Oh,
hold
yeah.
on. Yeah, hold on. Don't jump the gun. Motion was made and seconded. Any further council comment on this agenda item tonight?
Yeah, this is Sharon.
Yes, Sharon.
I just want to make sure, like Sylvia said, are we going to see the letter before you send it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
The Conservation Commission use our system. That's why.
Can we please vote?
Yeah, hold on a second, Barbara. Yep.
The Conservation Commission needs to use the system. That's why we have to be off by.
Yes.
No, they don't.
Well, they can wait a minute or two.
Yeah, I mean, jeepers, crow.
No, Lisa said they use a different number, so they don't need to. That's what she
Right,
said.
I followed up with the second email.
Oh, okay, so we're good.
I stand corrected.
Okay. All right, so,
Um,
yeah, Kevin.
This is Kevin. We still have to vote on the motion. I
No, I know,
think.
well,
Send the
yeah,
letter.
right, no, I know. We had further comment, so a motion was made second and further comment,
To adjourn, right?
well, no, we have to vote first.
No.
So,
We have to vote.
okay, so we had a motion, we had a second, and we had discussion. Any further discussion on this? Okay. Having heard none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 That's unanimous. Okay.
Thank
Scott,
you.
I thought I already made a motion to adjourn.
Well, we'll make another one.
I
please.
You
move,
can't until after we vote.
Go ahead, please.
I move, we adjourn.
May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you
And
all.
by the way, thank you, Lisa.
Thank you,
You're welcome.
Sharon, Barbara. Thank you for your comments tonight. I really appreciate the support. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Good night, all.
Good night, Lisa and Kevin. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.
Good night.